Welcome, everybody, to Riverhead School Board meeting of Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021. Can I have a motion to come out of executive session? Thank you, Matt. Could I have a second? Thank you, Virginia. All in favor? Passes. We all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Mr. Hudson, will you start us off? Thank you. We have opportunity for the high school student representatives.
Good evening, and my name is Amani Thomas. Usually Angeles is here speaking with me, but she unfortunately cannot make it tonight. Last week, we had our second Spirit Week and decorating contests. The days were Cultural Heritage Day, Twin Day, Neon Day, and Class Color Day. Each class was also designated to decorate a hallway, and the theme was Nickelodeon TV shows. Freshmen chose Avatar: The Last Airbender, sophomores were Fairly Odd Parents, juniors were Victorious, and seniors were SpongeBob SquarePants. Seniors took on first place, freshmen were second, sophomores were third, and juniors were last. Tomorrow, we're also having another senior forum where seniors have the opportunity to voice their opinions about what they hope to have for their senior year, or things that we can implicate into our regular instructions. Moreover, the other senior class officers and I have been meeting with Mr. O'Hara and Mr. Colhane in regards to our senior prom. And we are happy to say that senior prom is still happening, and it will take place on June 24th at Majestic Gardens. As well as, over the last couple of weeks, our clubs have been up and running again with daily meetings and have been starting some events in the school. Though the clubs are not meeting in person, they have still been interactive with students participating in Google Meets calls and engaging actively as if we are in school full time. Followed by this, our sports are also coming back and coaches are recruiting students to join and participate. They are posting daily in our school announcements. Last month, I had the opportunity to speak at the district's Cultural Diversity Task Force meeting and voice my opinion about the Long Island conferences that I have attended and how Riverhead has done an incredible job with having such an inclusive environment for all races and different cultural backgrounds. Personally, it was an eye-opening to hear from alumni and other members of the community to express how they felt in regards to the atmosphere we have created for our students, and how they spoke so eloquently about the history of Long Island and more specifically about the history of people of color from Riverhead. After I spoke, Ms. Tona and Mr. O'Hara informed me of the impact that I have made and how it's opened up doors to conversations that haven't been spoken about and how it offered a new perspective to what needs and can be done. Furthermore, the school will be having an advisory board for the Cultural Diversity Task Force, which includes student leaders from different clubs from the school that would have a segment in the monthly meetings. This Friday, Angeles and I will be attending another Long Island Leaders of Tomorrow conference where there will be student facilitators and note takers. This time we'll be discussing issues along the lines of social emotional health, social justice, and remote and hybrid learning. We will direct other students in their opinions how they feel in regards to everything that is going on currently. In February, we also had our yearly PSA I Love You Day, where students and faculty members wear purple to bring awareness to the importance of mental health and decrease bullying. From students, they have said it was successful and enlightening to hear and talk about us raising awareness about mental health and how teachers were reassuring students how they were there if need be, and how many of our social workers and faculty members were there as well. The school has also been preparing greatly for the 4 days of in-person learning and has made great efforts in social distancing, not only in the hallways, but in classrooms as well. Many students and parents may have concerns still about masks and the face shields. Yet the school's response to it has been impeccable and are going above and beyond to welcome back students 4 days a week in the safest way possible. Lastly, student government has heard about Ms. Stromsky not feeling her best, and we are planning a small gift on behalf of the classes to her. We are thinking about her during this time and hope that she feels much better soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lisa, do we have anything on agenda items online? No? Anybody for public comments on agenda items? Nope. Okay, we're going to go to recognition of Transportation Department employees. On March 15th, Transportation Department employees noticed a fire in several homes at Calverton Hills. The smoke quickly overwhelmed the area, and our staff worked to ensure the safety of the children in the neighborhood by moving the students down away from the fire to safety. Our bus was trapped at the top of the hill, so our staff walked some of the students down the hill and transported others in the Transportation Department's SUV. At the request of the Riverhead Fire Department, they allowed our bus to be used as an emergency shelter for the displaced residents until Red Cross could arrive. Our employees deserve our praise and thanks for stepping forward in an adverse circumstances and ensuring the safety of our students. Mind you, none of them have ever been in a situation like this, and none of them were trained for anything like this. They did an impeccable job. I want to thank them.
And I'd like to call their names, and then once everyone's called, if you can come forward and get your certificate. Leslie Moore Sr., Colette Furcht, Colleen Haroon, Clifford Koziak, Carmen Vega Perez, Kim Williams, Alicia Moore, Mustafa Howler.
Thank you, Ms. Doss. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okie dokie, thank you again. We move on to the superintendent's report. Ms. Tona?
Thank you, Mrs. Downs. First, I'd like to congratulate our top 20 students from the Riverhead High School class of 2021. We look forward to recognizing all 20 of you, as well as all of the graduates in the coming months. Special congratulations to our valedictorian, Aria Minucha, and salutatorian, Kyle Martelli. And I look forward to meeting all 20 of our students tomorrow when they assemble together for a photo opportunity. Congratulations. The district is currently underway with kindergarten registration and new entrant registration for those who are looking to join us in the Riverhead Central School District family. Last night, we had our first of 2 Zoom webinars for information. Last night focused on kindergarten and grades 1 through 6. Tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. via Zoom, we're focusing on our secondary new entrants who wish to join the district. We're also having evening registration at each of our K-4 buildings in April from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. in the physical buildings to assist families who need assistance in registering their children. Phillips Avenue on April 8th, Roanoke on April 12th, Riley Avenue April 14th, and Aquabog on April 15th. Recently, we learned from the CDC that schools can safely open with 3 feet of social distancing as opposed to 6 feet and without any barriers. That's the CDC's guidance at this point. It's encouraging. However, all of the school districts in New York State follow New York State Department of Health regulations and requirements, and they have not made any change as yet. So we're hopeful that the Department of Health will make a change in the coming days or weeks, which will allow us to have our students back with 3 feet of social distancing and no barriers. Also, in the past week, we heard information from New York State Education Department regarding the assessments. So I will be sending a letter out to the community later this week, which outlines all of the changes. But to summarize, our 3 through 8 assessments in ELA and math and our grades 4 and 8 assessments in science, they will be one-day administration, multiple choice, basically. April for the ELA, May for the math, and early June for the science. Students who are on full remote will not be required to take any of these assessments. However, if a family wishes their child to take the assessments, they can notify the district and we will allow them to sit for the assessments. None of these assessments are tied to accountability this year. So in the letter, if families wish to not participate, they can inform their building principal as well. Regents exams, the only exams that are going to be offered are those required for the federal government. And all of these assessments are happening because New York State Education Department did apply for a waiver to the federal Education Department, but it has not yet been granted. So they moved forward with the plans in case that waiver is not granted. And in New York State, we would be forced to give these assessments. So the Regents exams that will be offered this June are algebra, living environment, earth science, and English language arts. All other Regents exams are canceled. There will be no administration of Regents exams in August. So students, if they don't sit for the Regents exam, they'll get an exemption. And an exemption will allow them, as long as they pass the course for the year, they will not need to sit for the Regents exam. If they sit for the Regents exam and they don't do well on the Regents exam, it won't affect their standing and they'll be able to get course credit. So the key is for the student to pass the coursework for the entire school year. They'll get credit towards graduation. Tonight on the agenda, there is a modification, a resolution regarding our policy so that the Regents exams will not be weighted in the student's final course grade this year. And next week is spring break. So I'd like to wish all of our students and the staff members who are off for the week a happy and healthy and restful week. And at this time, I would like to invite Dr. Hudson and some of the staff members from the middle school and students to the podium for their presentation this evening. Dr. Hudson.
Thank you, Ms. Tona. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As Ms. Tona said, I'm Dr. Steve Hudson, the very proud principal of the Riverhead Middle School. I am here this evening with our wonderful assistant principals, Ms. Janine Campbell and Ms. Laura Arcuri. Also joining us, one of our social workers, Ms. Alicia Phillips. I do have some special guests that I will introduce shortly. We would like to thank the Board of Education and District Office for allowing us to present some of the wonderful things that are occurring at the middle school. I would also like to thank our very dedicated staff, without whom none of this could be possible. Just wait for Mr. Hines to get this up. Thank you, Ms. Hines. We're good. Over the last year or so, we have implemented and are continuing some effective practices. First, our teaming. Our teachers meet daily in teams and include all core subject areas. They work collaboratively on data, curriculum, and most importantly, parent communication. Parents are able to schedule a team meeting and meet with all their child's teachers together. We are always looking for ways to lessen student anxiety and support our students. We've added an additional lunch period to reduce the number of students in the cafeteria, We have increased our passing time between classes to ensure that students have time to stop at their lockers, use the restroom, and even say hi to their friends. One aspect we are thrilled about this year is our distribution of Chromebooks for all our students. Students are able to use these devices during school, as well as take them home to complete assignments or sign on to their virtual class instruction. Another aspect we are very proud of is our academic programs. Of course, we have all the general courses, math, science, social studies, and English. We also offer various support classes, including AIS, Academic Intervention Services, LLI, Leveled Literacy Instruction, and newly implemented this year, HLA, Heritage Language Arts, and SLA, Spanish Language Arts. We also offer accelerated courses beginning with advanced math in 7th grade. In 8th grade, students are able to take algebra and living environment. These courses conclude with a Regents exam, and those who pass receive a high school credit. I am very proud to say that during our last Regents exam in both algebra and living environment, every single student passed. Students are also able to participate in a foreign language. We offer both Spanish and French. Students who take 2 years of either language and pass the FLACS exam receive a credit towards their high school language requirement. Last year, the middle school students and parents voted on and developed our middle school motto. We are responsible, motivated, and successful. Our social workers went to each class this year and with our students defined and discussed examples of each so they could truly embrace our motto. Now this evening you will see an example of middle school students being responsible, motivated, and successful. Our peer leaders work with 5th and 6th grade students from Pulaski Street, teaching strategies that prevent youth substance abuse. I would be remiss if I did not thank CAP Executive Director, Ms. Felicia Scacosa, and with us this evening, Ms. Cynthia Redmond, Community Prevention Specialist, for all their work with our students. Now, without further ado, and most importantly, I would like to introduce two of our peer leaders and presenters this evening, Erin Hubbard and Deleska Ortiz Lopez.
Hi, my name is Erin Hubbard, and I'm an 8th grade peer leader in the Riverhead CAP program at Riverhead Middle School. Riverhead Community Awareness Program, also known as CAP, has been serving the students in Riverhead Central School District since 1979. CAP is the major provider of drug and alcohol prevention, counseling, and community collision services in the Riverhead Central School District and community. CAP is probably best known for its prevention program at Pulaski Street School, where middle school and high school peer leaders teach the 5th and 6th graders about the importance of making healthy choices and avoiding substance use. Like everything else, the CAP program was taught differently because of COVID. Even though we couldn't go to Pulaski Street to teach the program, it was still really important for us to make sure the younger kids got the information they needed to make the right choices. So we decided to make videos for the 5th and 6th graders to watch whether they were in school or learning from home. The videos focus on goal setting, decision making, peer pressure, communication, medicine abuse, alcohol, nicotine, and marijuana. The peer leaders still meet weekly during a Google Meets to learn the material in the CAP lesson, practice lesson, and record it. There are 16 8th grade peer leaders and more at the high school. We take turns deciding who is going to record the lessons, and once it is recorded in English and in Spanish, the videos are ready to be made. So far, we made 11 videos. It is very important for the kids to learn about the dangers of substance use during these times because many kids are struggling. The students need to understand that there are better alternatives to help with their struggles during these hard times because the substance use can harm them since they are still very young and their brains and bodies are still developing. The CAP program teaches the students in our community about the dangers of substance use and is able to help them make healthy and positive decisions. For me, I like being able to help my community, connect with my peers, and participate in school activities that make a difference in the lives of others. Next, we'll be showing an example of one of the videos that we created for the students to watch.
For those at home, we're having audio difficulties, so just hang in, and then hopefully we'll get it up and running in a second.
Welcome back, 5th grade Pulaski students. Hi, my name is Erin Hubbard, and I'm an 8th grade peer leader at Riverhead Middle School.
Mi nombre es Dalesca Ortiz y soy un líder del grupo de octavo grado en la escuela secundaria de Riverhead.
At the beginning of our last lesson, we talked about managing mistakes. In life, things don't always go the way we expect them. How we handle disappointment affects our feelings and our actions. Positive self-talk helps you find the brighter side of a situation or a way to do better the next time. Today, we are going to talk about peer pressure. Who is a peer? That's right. A peer is someone your own age. A peer could be a classmate, someone who lives in your neighborhood, or a friend. If someone your own age tried to get you to do something you know you shouldn't do, that person is using negative peer pressure to persuade you.
Cuando anima a su compañero a tomar una decisión responsable o hacer algo saludable, eso es presión positiva del grupo.
Which of the two situations is an example of negative peer pressure? That's right. Situation 1 is a negative peer pressure situation. Tyson pressured Jason to spend money on the movie instead of saving to buy his brother the video game. Jason gave in to Tyson's peer pressure. Should Tyson be in control of Jason's decisions? No. Who should be in control of Jason's decisions? That's right. Jason should be in control of his decisions.
Good evening, my name is Dalesca Ortiz and I am an 8th grade peer leader in the Riverhead CAP program at Riverhead Middle School. I became a peer leader because when I was in 6th grade, I loved seeing older kids encouraging the younger kids to choose the right path. The peer leaders knew about the effects of alcohol, vaping, smoking, etc., and they inspired me to choose the right path and become a leader too. Every other week, a lesson is presented to the students at Pulaski Street by peer leaders in grades 8 through 12. These lessons focus on making healthy choices, peer pressure, setting goals, communication skills, and the problems you have when you choose to drink alcohol or do drugs. It is really important that all kids understand that bad choices like drugs or alcohol can have a big effect on your life. Every lesson is translated into Spanish. My bilingual peers and I want to create the lesson equally so that Pulaski students who don't speak English or are just learning English understand the lesson. There have been times when we have helped translate the lesson, which helps make our skills better. 4 out of the 16 8th grade peer leaders are bilingual, so we have done every lesson in Spanish. One of the lessons we taught the students at Pulaski was how to set and reach goals. I think this is important for kids to know, especially if they are having problems. You can overcome problems by setting goals and asking for help if you need it. Being a peer leader has helped me overcome my fear of public speaking, and I like talking to my peers in this program. Thank you to the Riverhead School District and the Board of Education for supporting the Riverhead CAP program and allowing us to make a difference. Thank you.
Erin Dalesca, that was absolutely amazing. I'd also like to thank Mrs. Hubbard and Mrs. Lopez for being here tonight and lending us their children for such an amazing presentation. I would now like to turn it over to Miss Campbell.
Good evening, everybody. As Dr. Hudson said, my name is Janine Campbell. I'm one of the assistant principals at the middle school. This year, to reach our students and families, we are running an after-school academy program. Our program has been running 4 days a week for an hour virtually after school. Students in need of additional academic or social support are hand-chosen by their teachers to attend intimate Google Meets targeting areas of concern. Our teachers and students have found this program to be an extremely beneficial, effective, and valuable intervention. In addition, Riverhead Middle School is proud to be a part of the Parent Portal Outreach district-wide initiative, enrolling as many families as possible onto the Parent Portal in an effort to increase transparency and communication with our families. We have been inviting families into the building on Wednesday evenings at the high school to walk them through the registration process and how to navigate their child's progress. I am proud to report that with the efforts of this team, we have decreased the percentage of families without Parent Portal registration from 48% down to 35% in only a few months. Riverhead Middle School is proud to host the My Brother's Keeper program starting tomorrow morning and every Wednesday morning from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. through the month of May. In 2014, President Obama launched the My Brother's Keeper initiative to address persistent opportunity gaps faced by boys and young men of color and ensure that all young people can reach their full potential. New York State Education Department, with the help of Dr. Lori Corner, has granted the Riverhead School District the My Brother's Keeper Grant Award. We will be working with Stony Brook University to conduct HSTEM program activities alongside teacher facilitators to tap into student interests not typically explored in general core classes. In addition, we will be offering a career and technical education exploration component of the My Brother's Keeper program after school in May and June. This program will encompass a variety of opportunities for students to explore barbering, HVAC, automotive tech, culinary arts, and other essential employment skills. At Riverhead Middle School, our teachers have nominated students who exhibit being responsible, motivated, and successful each quarter. We've recognized over 200 of our students for their hard work this year. We'd also like to thank the PTO for donating rewards for these student nominees.
Good evening. My name is Laura Arcuri. I'm one of the assistant principals at the middle school. The next few slides will highlight the amazing activities and projects the students have been working on. After reading the book Seed Folks, the 7th and 8th grade E&L students brought the book to life through working together to plant and grow their own plants. They used the plants to construct a model of the book's setting. One too far? Oh, there you go. Our 7th and 8th grade students were not able to perform together this year in person. However, under the direction of Mrs. Crespo, they were able to perform together virtually. This evening, we'll be having the pleasure of listening to our talented 8th graders. That's a little preview. If you would like to see the 7th and 8th graders in its entirely, you can go to the website as well and you can view it. It's well worth it. The middle school staff and students are excited to bring back the music clubs this year. We would like to say thank you to the Board of Education for this wonderful opportunity. The teachers and students are so excited to start performing together after school. Mr. Barbera's technology class learned about gravity and buoyancy by designing and building their own foil boats. Students studying French learned about the placing of love locks on city bridges. As an extension of the lesson, students designed their own paper love locks. These love locks are displayed in our hallway. Middle school students created portraits and quotes based on the work of Katie Wall. These amazing pieces of art can be seen throughout the hallway of the building. And lastly, we'd like to thank our PTO for their ongoing support. The pumpkin contest was a huge success among our families, and everyone had a lot of fun. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alicia Phillips. I'm one of the school social workers at Riverhead Middle School. Given the challenging circumstances of this school year, administrators, teachers, and staff have tried to find new and innovative ways to engage our students. We have found that although academics are crucial, they are not the only thing that we need to consider when working with children. We have taken on a more holistic approach in helping engage our students this school year, from getting them connected to food pantries and community services, to motivating them to participate in school, whether virtually or hybrid. Our school has come up with creative ways in doing so despite this current pandemic. This week, we are holding breakout rooms with teacher-facilitated activities to reward the students for their hard work. They had shortened periods so they could enjoy the afternoon with their peers, playing games, watching movies, and doing arts and crafts. During Thanksgiving time, Riverhead Middle School collaborated with Blaze Community Church to help support our families. We were able to donate non-perishable foods, coats, hats, gloves, and gift cards to over 40 families in our community. In December, we continued to receive donations with the help from Blaze Church, Riverhead Rotary Club, school staff members, and other community organizations. We were again able to help over 40 families for the holiday and provide them with gifts that included games, arts and crafts, clothing, winter necessities, and gift cards. December also kicked off our Spirit Days, which began with Pajama Day, as you can see here. We continued with a Spirit Week in February, which included 80s Day, Crazy Hat Day, Team Jersey Day, and Blue and White Day. Lastly, we came up with the idea of holding monthly challenges at Riverhead Middle School in an attempt to increase student engagement. We wanted to find a way to connect students across cohorts and motivate them to engage in school no matter what platform of learning they were enrolled in. In February, we held a Heart Challenge. This was a challenge amongst the cohorts to see which cohort could send the most positive messages. The students enjoyed this challenge because it allowed them to send messages to their friends in the opposite cohorts that they may not have seen in a long time. It promoted engagement and focused on random acts of kindness. Over 1,300 hearts were given out between the 3 cohorts and staff, and in the end, our cohort 2 won the challenge, receiving prizes donated from the RMS PTO. We found that the students responded well to the competition and rewards, so we continued with another challenge in March. Attendance this year has been even more concerning than in years past. We created a March Madness attendance challenge between social studies classes to help improve these numbers. Each week, the class with the higher percentage of attendance moved forward to the next round. Throughout this challenge, we saw improvement in attendance each week. We are currently down to our final 4. We have a self-care challenge that will kick off in April to promote students becoming more aware of their well-being and the importance that self-care plays in their everyday lives. We plan to continue implementing challenges to keep the students at RMS motivated and engaged.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for letting us share a piece of the Riverhead Middle School. Before I close, I have one more very important thank you, and this is for our amazing students and families. Throughout all the changes in a very difficult year, our students have adapted, overcome obstacles. They have remained positive, continued to learn, and have always supported each other. Parents, thank you for your continued support in our efforts. You should be very proud of each and every one of your children. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Mr. Hudson.
Thank you, Dr. Hudson, and also to Mrs. Campbell, Mrs. Arcuri, Mrs. Phillips, and to Mrs. Redmond and our students, Deleska Ortiz-Lopez and Erin Hubbard, for sharing tonight. It was great to hear all of the wonderful activities that are happening in the middle school. Thank you. And now, Mr. Schneider and I will present our 3rd budget presentation of the season. Mr. Hines, we need the advancer, slide advancer. Could you advance the slide, please? So here's our agenda for the evening. We always have an ambitious agenda, so let's get started. Again, here are the Board of Education goals from the January 12th adoption. And I'd like to highlight again, the one board goal that I think is the most important for me is to design and adopt a budget that recognizes the current fiscal reality for Riverhead residents. The community spoke loud and clear last year, and we want to be mindful of their message to us, and we strive to design a budget that is in line with the needs of the community. So before we start with the general fund budget, I'd like to highlight some of our federal grants, because federal grants are a wonderful source of funds for us to supplement our activities. The Consolidated Title Grant consists of 4 sections. Title I, Part A, which is used to provide supplemental academic support for students. Title II, Part A, which is used to provide professional development to teachers and principals. Title III, Part A, which is used to support our English language learners and immigrant students. And Title IV, Part A, which is used for student support and academic enrichment. So on this slide, you can see a breakdown of the budget for each of the 4 components, totaling approximately $1.5 million for the school year. We use the monies in different ways depending on the category, but the majority of the funds are used towards salaries and benefits, and it's to fund positions that are supplemental to our programs. The School Improvement Grant is under the Every Student Succeeds Act, and the New York State Education Department identified several of our schools in need of support. Riverhead Middle School and Roanoke Avenue are identified as CSI schools, Comprehensive Support and Improvement Schools, while Pulaski is identified as a TSI school, Targeted Support and Improvement. Those 3 schools have to design goals, SMART goals, each year, and create action plans to carry out those goals. And the State Education Department, through the federal government, provides money to each of the schools so that they can carry out the activities. We also have 4 schools in good standing: our high school, Aquabog, Phillips Avenue, and Riley Avenue, so they do not receive any funds from the grant. This slide shows the breakdown by district and the schools of the amount of money that the school improvement grant provides. So the 2 CSI schools receive $200,000 each per year, and the TSI school, Pulaski, as well as the district, receives $50,000 each per year. And again, if you look at what we use the funds for, majority of the funds are used towards salary and benefits, as well as materials and supplies and professional development to support programs that are outlined in the action plans. We receive special education federal grants in the form of the Section 611 grant, which is targeted for school-age students, and Section 619, which is for preschool-age students. And these grants are used to supplement expenses for our special education students. Between those 2 grants, we receive about $1.6 million for this current school year. And again, the majority of the grant funds are used towards supplemental salaries. In addition to federal grants that are received directly to the district, they're non-competitive grants, we've also been fortunate to participate in consortiums, one through Eastern Suffolk BOCES called the Learning Technology Grant. That was a competitive grant which includes several different districts that receive professional development for staff, as well as some devices for our students. The Advanced Course Access Grant is a new grant that we're participating through Nassau BOCES. We're one of 13 school districts. And the design for this grant is to allow 30 of our students access to advanced placement courses that we don't currently offer in the high school. So for the 21-22 school year, we're going to offer AP Human Geography, AP Statistics, and AP Environmental Science. These courses will take place outside of the school day. They'll be done virtually. The students will not be able to receive high school course credit, but they will be able to sit for the advanced placement exam in the spring at no charge, and hopefully if they do well with the advanced placement, they could qualify for college credit. Our teacher facilitator will also receive professional development, and we hope to learn from these courses so that we can, in the future, embed them in our course offering book at the high school. So at this point, I'd like to invite to the podium Dr. Lori Kerner, our Executive Director for Curriculum, Instruction, and Professional Personnel, and she's going to talk to us about the My Brother's Keeper grant.
Thank you, Ms. Tona, and thank you to the Board of Education for allowing me to share with you a little bit tonight about the My Brother's Keeper grant. Thank you to Janine for sharing a bit about that earlier. So the purpose of the My Brother's Keeper Challenge grant is to incentivize and support school districts to accept the challenge and implement a coherent outcomes-based cradle to college strategy aimed at improving the lives of young boys of color, underrepresented children. The My Brother's Keeper grant is a little different than the other grants that we described to you tonight because we need to write a proposal. There's a request for proposal, and so we're very thrilled that we were able to write that proposal and it was accepted. So through this grant, the goal is for the New York State Education Department to fund school districts in one or more of the following milestones, and you can see on the screen here. The first one is getting a healthy start and entering school ready to learn. The second one is to be able to read at grade level in 3rd grade. And the third one is graduating from high school ready for college and or career. So I'm thrilled to share with you that our proposal includes all of those milestones. And the grant is for specific buildings in our district. The grant will be focused on Roanoke Elementary School, and as you heard earlier, Riverhead Middle School. So the conceptual framework for our grant here in Riverhead includes various pathways to raise graduation success. So you can see in the diagram in front of you, we have added at Roanoke Elementary School an extra bilingual teacher, and she's working with targeted groups of students to help raise their literacy. We have also added a .4 psychologist at Roanoke Elementary School. In addition, we've added a .4 psychologist at Riverhead Middle School, and the goal there is for our psychologists to assist the children in raising self-esteem, self-confidence. It's the whole social, emotional component that is necessary in order for children to be able to learn. We will also be partnering, as Ms. Campbell mentioned earlier, with Stony Brook University to offer the children health, science, technology, engineering, and math opportunities. We have a partnership with BOCES for CTE explorations. And as Ms. Campbell mentioned earlier, the children will be able to dabble in various career paths to identify their own passions and talents so that they feel a sense of self-worth and direction as they enter into the high school. The last part of our framework is a motivational series, speaker series, and we have Antonio Diaz, who is a graduate of Riverhead, coming with his team to motivate and ignite passion in these young boys. So we are very, very excited about that. So on the last slide, if you don't mind advancing the slide. That's it. Oh, that is the last slide. Hip, hip, hooray. Okay, so this is the last slide. This shows you the theoretical framework for the grant, which is Maslow before Bloom, which indicates that children need to feel a sense of belonging before they are able to thrive academically. The second part of the theoretical framework is tapping into multiple intelligences and sharing with young children that everybody has a talent and everybody has a passion. And so we want to offer these children multiple opportunities to find their own. So you can see here the timeline for events, as stated earlier by Ms. Campbell. We're beginning tomorrow morning. We can't wait with our HSTEM collaboration. Our CTE explorations will begin May 3rd, and we are currently identifying dates for our inspirational speaker series. The last part will be partnering with our community members who would like to come in and share their stories and their journey with our young students. So in closing, I would really like to thank the Board of Education, Ms. Tona and the admin team, certainly Dr. Hudson, Ms. Campbell, Ms. Arcuri, and Mr. Payton for their collaboration, time, and dedication to getting all of this off the ground. We are really excited for our students, so thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Dr. Kerner. And as mentioned, the My Brother's Keeper grant, along with the Learning Tech and the Advanced Course Access grants, those are competitive grants. So our participation with consortiums and writing grants ourselves brings opportunities to our students that they wouldn't normally have. So this slide shows grant-funded positions, and there are quite a few. I alluded to it as we went through the financial portions of each of the budgets, but you can see here how all of these grants help support our programs and provide our students with the supports they need, academic as well as social emotional supports. So to sum up federal grants, they're used to supplement the services that the district provides as part of the general fund budget. So now we're going to move into our general fund budget and note that the grant revenues are not part of the general fund budget. They're not included there. So as we look at special education and PPS, what we're going to be looking at are programs that are driven by individual student need. We select from among these services that which enable the student to be successful in the least restrictive environment possible. The ultimate goal here is for the student to be successful. And as you can see on this slide, we provide a variety of supports to make that happen. So this slide, you can see the past 12 years of trends in classified and 504 identified students. We can see there are increases in these trends over the 12 years. While our enrollment has increased over the past 12 years, the enrollment of the students who have individual needs has outpaced the enrollment increases that we've seen as a district. Outside of district supports, there are some students who have needs that need to be met through a BOCES placement in one of the BOCES schools. And you could see the numbers here, as well as the costs for individual students in some cases can be up to or even more than $100,000 per student. And that's part of our general fund budget. So if we look at our instructional staff over the past 12 years, and this slide does include positions that are funded by federal grants as well as the general fund, we can see the number of special education teachers, psychologists, social workers, and speech therapists. Each category has increased over the 12 years that are noted on this slide. We've been able to operate on fewer aides this year, and our special education aides, they provide support to students for supporting their health needs, their behavioral needs, or their academic classroom participation needs. But this year, because it was different with hybrid cohorts, we were able to operate with fewer aides. As the students come back full-time, we will need to increase up to 68 aides is what we anticipate for next year. Mr. Schneider.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tona. So here we can talk a little bit about the cost of these services. The three columns, so you see the years there, and then the next three columns on the left, the next three columns there on the left, will show you the cost of three major categories of special education spending. BOCE services, which we've already talked about. Consultants. We use consultants for evaluation services, for OT and PT services, for a variety of trainings, and then private school tuition. Some students' needs are best met through a placement at a private school. So you can see the upward trajectory of a lot of those expenses in those three columns. On the right-hand side, after the black bar, we're showing you what the total special education costs are in each year in what we call the 2250 code. If you recall from our last meeting, we talked about the various function codes. Special education services are handled mostly under the 2250 code. Our total adopted budget for the year and the percent of special education as a percentage of their overall budget, and you can see we're on an upward trajectory there. So putting all that together, this slide represents the recommended appropriations for special education for next year. A couple of notes I just want to make here. You can see that under the revised budget for this year for consultants, this is a little bit, we anticipate based on the information we know today, we're actually going to need to find about $400,000 in the budget to transfer into this section of the budget in order to meet our needs this year. So yes, it's a large increase that you see when you compare adopted budget to proposed budget, but when you see what when we see what the final numbers going to end up being, that $879,000 is probably we're going to end the year about $1.2 million. So it's still an increase, it's not as large. And you can also see the instructional staff, as Ms. Toner referred to. We're anticipating 68 aides next year. So that is our budget for special education for next year.
So English as a new language is a mandated service for students that are identified through state testing, and they come into our district speaking another language that's identified on the home language questionnaire. So the instruction is provided in multiple ways. Sometimes it's a push-in service into the classroom, and sometimes it's a pull-out into a small group setting. We also offer bilingual education classes so that bilingual students can advance their proficiency in their home language while gaining proficiency in the English language and learning content in both languages so that they can be successful and move forward towards graduation requirements. So here you can see our E&L enrollment, student enrollment trends over the past 12 years, and the increase is staggering. And with this increase comes the additional need for staffing to meet the needs of the students. And we want every one of our students to be successful and meet the requirements for graduation, so we need to provide them with supports. World languages is not part of tonight's budget presentation. It was part of the last budget presentation 2 weeks ago. But it was important that I address it tonight because Mr. Connolly and some of the other board members made mention of it at our last meeting. And currently we offer Spanish and French, and we are exploring student interest in American Sign Language at the middle school level. So hopefully we can see if there's interest from the students, and then the next step would be looking for a teacher to provide instruction. And we will continue to offer Latin 3 in the 21-22 school year to allow the students who have been enrolled in Latin over the past several years to complete their 3-year language sequence. So to support the instructional needs of our students, we also provide counseling services and nursing services to meet the social, emotional, and medical needs of our students. So you can see on this slide, that includes our psychologists, and our social workers, and there's a difference between them. The psychologists are those that conduct a lot of the testing, they chair CSE meetings, and our social workers are the ones who are doing more of the counseling of the students and coordinating services between students and their families when they're in need. And then we have guidance counselors who are guiding our students towards course selections and choices to make for college and beyond. And our nurses are attending to the immediate medical needs of our students. And this year, they've had the added challenge of handling COVID scenarios as well.
So talking about nurses, we employ nurses obviously in our 7 public school buildings, but we are also responsible for providing nurses at the 3 non-public schools that are located in our district, St. John Paul II Regional School, which was formerly St. Isidore's, the Peconic Community School, and the Riverhead Charter School. The nurses in those 3 buildings are our employees. we are able to bill back the districts that have students who attend these schools for a proportionate share of those costs. So we just want to take a minute to show you how we do that. We work out what the costs are going to be for the entire year for the various areas that are billable. We then divide that by the total enrollment, which includes the enrollment of the students who go to those 3 private placements, as well as students here, which works out to a per pupil cost. You can see the per pupil cost on the slide. And then we have contracts that are in place with each of the districts that are districts of residence for students whose parents have placed them at one of these 3 schools, and we bill them for a proportionate share of those services. This year, we anticipate bringing in $204,000 to help cover those costs.
So we're very proud of our guidance department, who work very hard to ready our students for high school graduation, college careers. And here on the slide, you can see photos of our top 20 students. So congratulations again to all of those students and all of our future graduates. And on this slide, what I'm most proud of here is our academic scholarships. Our students work very hard, and colleges are noticing that, and they're offering scholarships to them based on their academic achievements while they're here in Riverhead High School. And this next slide, it's hard to see because there's many colleges listed here. This is, as of current, which colleges have our class of 2021 been accepted to. So as you know, many times students apply to multiple colleges, they get accepted to multiple colleges, and they have to pick one, but they've really done a fantastic job. There's some very impressive colleges on this slide listed, so congratulations.
So next we want to talk about career and technical education. CTE courses are a wonderful opportunity for students who may not be interested in attending a traditional 4-year school, or who may be interested in studying a non-academic pursuit. And if they are interested in that, they can try those programs on for size in high school through half-day educational experiences that they can go to at BOCES, either at HB Ward, which is located on the other side of the parking lot here, or in Bellport. You can see a listing of all the courses that our students take. The CTE courses mean that students can graduate high school in many instances with a license to practice cosmetology, or with enough experience that they can get a job in a commercial kitchen, having studied culinary arts, just 2 programs, for example. The guidance department talked to some students to see why they were interested in these CTE classes, and you can see we've selected some of their answers here. As I said before, these programs are students who are not interested in a traditional collegiate setting are attracted to these programs. We run a fairly broad CTE program here. You can see this is a listing of all the other districts in the Eastern Suffolk BOCES catchment area that show the number of students who attend CTE courses. Let me talk a little bit about how the billing works. The billing works on a strict 3-year rolling average. BOCES takes the 3 previous years of enrollment, they average that out, and that's what you are billed for the following year. So whether next year we send 1 student or 500 students, we are going to be billed for 148 students next year. So as we're doing the 3-year rolling average, our CTE enrollment has gone up. So when we're sitting here at this time a year from now, you should expect to see that the appropriation for CTE courses is likely going to be much bigger, as this 127 number from the 18-19 school year falls off the 3-year rolling average. Just something to keep in mind when we are here a year from now. Okay, so computers and technology. Obviously, this has been a banner year for the use of technology in instructional purposes. Mr. Hines and his staff really have done an amazing job making sure that students have the technology and teachers have the technology they need to be successful through an appropriation in the general fund budget, combined with some federal grants, combined with an extremely generous donation from OLA of Eastern Long Island. We have been able to put a computer, an iPad, or a Chromebook in the hands of any student who needs one while we've been on remote instruction. We are moving towards a permanent one-to-one device initiative to equip students with computer devices for instructional purposes. You can see the student here in this photograph is using a document camera as part of the lesson they're doing in the class. The extracurricular activities program we have here is really something that we should be very proud of. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic and because of the contingent budget, it has been somewhat limited this year, but our students are able to participate in a wide variety of activities especially community service ones. The one activity that has gone on unimpeded throughout the year has been our wonderful NJROTC program. Captain Laughlin, Gunnery Sergeant Mahala do an amazing job teaching students the concepts of military science, but also community service. You can see we have a picture here of Kalia Daniels. She was a graduate last year who, as a result of the work she did in high school and in the NJROTC program, was appointed to West Point following her graduation for a full 4-year ride to college, followed by a stint of service in the Army, the United States Army. But you can see this is the extracurricular activities. The high school musical this year is High School Musical, and it's going to be performed on this stage, unfortunately not with anyone in the audience, but it's going to be recorded and available on our website in end of May, early June for the community to watch. Another wonderful program that we have here is the Interscholastic Athletics program. We offer 26 sports and 67 teams. Unfortunately, a lot of it has been on pause because of the pandemic and the contingency budget this year, but it's coming back. High school athletics starts at the end of next month. I think what Mr. Sachs, Brian Sachs, the athletic director of health education and physical health, athletics, and physical education would say is the thing he's most proud of is the fact that so many of our students and our teams are classified as scholar athletes. So in addition to being quite good on the field of play, they're also excellent in the classroom. So this is the budget for those areas. Let's just highlight a couple of things. So obviously we've been able to use grants to offset some of the increases for some of our counseling needs. We talked about the enrollment, the future appropriations and the current appropriations for career and technical education. And then you can see the large increases for extracurricular activities and athletics. Obviously, those programs were on pause this year, so it's going to take some large appropriations in order to get them back running again, simply because we haven't run most of them this year, so the money has not been there. All right, so let's transition now. So we just spent the last 3 meetings talking about the expenditures. Now we're going to flip over to the side of the page to talk about the revenues. The expenditures are obviously what we're spending. The revenues is where we're getting the money to spend it. So there are 4 main sources of revenue that we can discuss. Obviously, the most important one is our property taxes that come from the property owners in the district, state aid, some locally generated revenues from tuitions and interest, and the reserves. So let's talk about property taxes. We discussed this slide. We've seen this before, but it bears repeating. This is a calculation that shows the maximum property tax increase that can be attached to this budget if the voters approve the budget. Now, as we know, because the budget was not approved last year and we were on contingency budget, property taxes went up $0. The property tax levy went up $0. The maximum levy that can go up this year is 1.47%, meaning that over a 2-year span, taxes for school district purposes will rise no more than 1.47%. State aid. Now, this is a big question mark here because we've seen this slide before. This is the governor's proposal for state aid. The state legislators from this area have told us that we can expect a generous increase in our state aid numbers. The state legislature is required to enact its budget next week by April 1st. That is the deadline. We are very hopeful that that number is going to rise significantly, and we're going to need it in order to help fund our expenditures for next year. And we're just not sure what that shape is going, what shape that's going to take yet. The appropriated fund balance, that's the amount of money left over in this year's budget that can be used to offset next year's budget. You can see what the appropriated fund balance has been in recent years. Now, it makes financial sense to bring the appropriated fund balance down. And you can see that's what the board has wisely done in recent years. You want to do that because as budgets get tighter and tighter, there's less money left over unspent in the budget, and thus you have less ability to gather money together in order to meet that appropriated fund balance. Remember, because if you don't have the appropriated fund balance available, you need to raise that revenue from another source. And with the tax cap in place, you cannot go to the voters, the taxpayers, to get that revenue source. So we have slowly been drawing the appropriated fund balance down. My ultimate goal is that eventually it will be 0, but we have to go down steadily in order to meet that, and that will be smart long-term budgeting for us. We also have reserves. The board has been wise in appropriating money into the reserves over the years. In order to help us save for future budgets, we rely heavily on our reserves as a revenue source for us. You can see that's the amount of money that is available in the relevant reserves that can be used to offset budgetary appropriations. So what we're going to be doing here is engaging in a balance test, in a balance of these 4 revenue sources over the next few weeks. And Ms. Toner can tell us more about that.
Thank you, Mr. Schneider. So our next steps, of course, we want to present a budget that restores items that were removed during contingency and enhance items in our budget so that we can provide the best education for our students. We also saw over the past several weeks that the budget contains some large increases in costs that are out of our control, such as charter school tuition, special education student needs, health insurance, and retirement system payments. So as Mr. Schneider said a few moments ago, we're hopeful, and we need to wait until the New York State Legislature adopts a budget and lets all the school districts know exactly what our state aid numbers are going to look like. So once we know what the state aid numbers are, if we still have a gap, we're going to put our heads together and come up with a list of potential reductions and present those to the Board of Education. Now, currently, our next meeting is April 20th, which would be the budget adoption date, but I'd like to propose to the board a special meeting on April 13th so that we can get our state aid runs and have time to take a look at that so that the board will have time to take a look at the budget in its entirety and make decisions, because once we get to budget adoption day on April 20th, we can't make changes that evening because there are other things that are being adopted that evening that go along with the budget, that once we make a change to the budget, a whole cascade of items will happen, and we would have to have some time to make some numerical adjustments and things that would be adopted by the board after the budget adoption. So the first presentation listed here is April 13th. So Board of Education, how do you feel about that as an additional meeting date?
Go ahead, any comments?
I'm in agreement. I think that's a good idea. Am I on?
On a special meeting?
For April 13th, yes, especially
Yes,
if you're
soon.
anticipating.
Everybody?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we have a special meeting on the 13th.
We're going to make the decision tonight. Yep. Matt brought up a motion. Could I have a second?
Second.
Virginia, all in favor? Special meeting, April 13th.
Thank
That
you.
Budget.
Thank you. And then April 20th would be the Board of Education adoption of the proposed budget. Then you see listed several meetings with our various PTOs, and we're waiting to hear from some other PTOs to see if they'd like Sam and I to visit them in person or virtually to present the adopted budget after April 20th. And we're also inviting other district organizations to contact us if they'd like us to come and present the budget to those other organizations as well. And then May 11th is our public hearing on the proposed budget, and May 18th is budget vote date from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And if anyone in the community has any questions, they can call or write to either me or Mr. Schneider. And Board of Education, do you have any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
And next meeting, Sam will have the full budget sheets. Everything will be included.
Right. I mean, the goal basically is to make the April 13th meeting the opportunity to go through it, make any changes that you want to see, because as Ms. Tone is saying, when you move into the April 20th meeting, you cannot make any adjustments that night. It's too many, it affects too many things that have to be locked in right then.
Anybody else have any questions? No questions.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Toner. Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Okay, so we're up to consent agenda. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Matt. Could I have a second, please? Thank you, Brian. Any cares, concerns? Not seeing any. All in favor? Motion passes. And we hit, number 4 is old business. This is the, what we discussed earlier and last meeting about the Regents waiting. And it's where we're not going to calculate the grade for the final grade with the Regents. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Matt. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Virginia. Any cares, concerns, any questions? Not seeing any. All in favor? Passes. And new business. This is approval of the CEQA for the cafeteria. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Sue. Can I have a second? Thank you, Matt. Any cares, concerns, or questions? Not seeing any. All in favor? Matt and Sue, all nay. Virginia, Brian, myself, and Therese. Motion goes down. B is approval of cafeteria proposition on the ballot for May 18th, special district meeting. This is a proposition to be put onto the ballot for the cafeteria capital reserve fund. Can I have a motion, please? Thank you, Sue.
Motion.
Could I have a second? Second. Thank you, Therese. Any questions, cares, or concerns? Not seeing any. Can I have all in favor? Matt and Sue, all.
I just want to question why
We're
there's
in the middle of a
opposition.
vote.
I know, but I didn't hear any concerns about the cafeteria proposition. That's
Well, nobody wanted to state their concerns.
I just think there was a big concern, especially from the public, that just wanted a clean budget and not to have anything else on there.
Exactly. This is not the time to put anything like this on the budget and confusing the people any more than what they are. This makes them think that it's coming somewhere where it's not. And this is not the time, personally, to have this on there.
I didn't. This is just the first that I've heard of it because I'm just expressing my concern. That's all, because this is what the 3rd or 4th year I'm sorry, Mr. Schneider, third, and I just believe that our community is very well educated on our cafeteria fund and that it's a separate entity from the general fund, and it's not taxpayers' money that's being used. I do believe that the community understands that and has voted and approved for it, so not to put it on the ballot for them to choose for improvements that have no impact on the general fund or any other programs, I think would be, I don't know, wouldn't be right for our community. That's just I'm just surprised, that's all. I just want to express my concern.
Thank you for your opinion. All those against? Virginia, Brian, Therese, and myself. So no. Let us see. Approval of contracts. 1 is for field maintenance supplies. 2 is custodial supplies. 3 is carpentry and general construction services. 4 is snow removal. 5 is health and first aid supplies. I just want to let this be clear that these are not expenditures right now. Most of these are in case of emergency situations, so we have somebody that's already bidded and set to the side. Can I have a motion?
Motion. Sorry.
Excuse me? Who? Thank you, Virginia. Second? Thank you, Matt. Any cares, concerns, questions?
Just ask how these were all decided. The Long Island Cauliflower Association for the first one, I understand, is landscape. The second is district and Amity Vacuum for cleaning supplies in Amityville. The Cauliflower Association is actually here in Riverhead. The other for cleaning supplies is in Amityville. Renew Contracting is in Copeg, that's for carpentry. And the B&B Maintenance Service is in Brookhaven for snowplow. I was just curious how these companies were selected.
Okay, so great question. So we conduct a bidding process in order to do this. We advertise the bids in the official newspapers of the district, and then companies are able to bid on this. We are required by law to select the lowest responsible bidder who meets our needs. So where they are located is not relevant to the conversation. We look at the bids. We make sure that they are a company that meets this insurance requirements, that demonstrates the capability to do the job, and then we're required to select the lowest responsible bidder. A number of these companies are companies that have done business with the district for many years, but also do business with a number of other school districts and municipalities. Many private businesses don't want to do business with municipalities because of the myriad of rules that we operate under that they then have to operate under. So these are the companies that are willing to bid on our work. You can see we've included in board docs, accessible to the public, the results from the bids, so you can see how we go about selecting the lowest responsible bidder. Often, if it's for a supply, the bid is structured where we would have what's called a market basket. So we would list for 20 items, for example, that they would have to price out, and then we see, okay, which company is going to be the sum total lowest. That's who we have to go with, even though there are other products available that we would also buy. For service bids, the bid is primarily based on lowest responsible bidder based on hourly wages. So that's how those companies are determined.
And on average, how many bids do you get for?
It varies, but I'd be very happy if you want, if you have a specific one, I can open up, the board docs bid sheets and take a look and, tell you if you have a particular company. There are some firms that, there are some bids where there just aren't a lot of firms that are willing to do the work for our various requirements. When you were talking about a service bid, for example, they have to hold what would customarily in the industry be considered to be a rather high insurance threshold, because that's what municipalities require. So, for example, Renew with its carpentry services, Renew is a company that is willing to carry that high level of insurance. They do a lot of business with municipalities. A lot of other carpentry-like companies are just not willing to carry that level of insurance, and so they never bid. But if you just give me a minute here.
And Mr. Schneider, isn't the bidding process also on video?
Yes, it is. It's open to the public.
It's open to the public.
Online.
You can watch all the bids being open.
Correct. So just give me a second here if you don't mind. So if we take here, for example, the carpentry bid, we had 3 companies that are willing to do business, we went through five companies that are, put in for the bid. I happen to know 3 of them off the top of my head of having done business with us in the past. But again, you have to be willing to meet the insurance requirements. You have to be willing to work without being paid first, because it's important to remember for everything that we do as a municipality, we issue a purchase order, which is our unconditional promise to pay later after the work is completed. So a lot of companies don't have the cash flow where they're able to pay all their employees and buy all the supplies and pay the insurance and only get paid from us several weeks later. So again, it kind of whittles down the number of firms that are willing to do this. So, for example, for the carpentry, there were 5 companies that put in for a bid. For field maintenance supplies, let's see, I see 2 companies put in a bid for the products that we needed, because again, we have specific requirements about what we need. And for custodial supplies, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, at least 6 companies put in for bid. And again, these are companies that do business with a lot of school districts and understand the timing and supply needs of school districts. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Schneider. Any other cares, concerns, or questions?
And
Not-
Mrs. Down, sorry, I just want to add all those documents I was just looking at are on board docs. The public can see them if they want to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor? Motion passes. D is renewal of contract. This is a contract for vehicle fuel management system, maintenance, and installation. Could I have a motion? Thank you, Matt. Could I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Conley. Any questions, cares, or concerns? Not seeing any. All in favor? Motion passes. Letter E is approval of cooperative bids. The first one is BOCES, and the second one is a school district called Clarkstown. A cooperative bid is where a bunch of people or districts all come together, and there's a bid, and everyone gets to go in it. It actually saves money, because it's like one place is doing it, and everyone jumps in. Am I correct, Mrs. Schneider? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's an excellent explanation.
That's it,
Basically,
right?
the buying power is much
That's
bigger.
a Lori way.
Yeah, no, it's excellent. The
Yeah.
buying power is much bigger because the size of the pool is much bigger.
Right. Thank you. Can I have a motion? Thank you, Virginia. Can I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Conley. Any cares, concerns, or questions? Not seeing any. All in favor? Passes. Letter F is approval of a rejection of a bid. This is where we actually kicked aside somebody. Could you explain why, Mr. Schneider?
Sure. So in this instance, this bid was conducted. We got the results. We actually will have better results at a cheaper price if we go with the contractor that you approved 2 votes ago, where we got it by piggybacking on a bid that was conducted by the town of Southampton. So in this instance, we're recommending you reject all the bids since you've approved and you've already approved the contract with the vendor from the town of Southampton.
Okay,
We'll
thank
get a
you.
better price that way.
Thank you. Can I have a motion, please? Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Second. Thank you, Mr. Conley. Any other questions, cares, or concerns? Not seeing any. All in favor? And passes. G is our first reading of revised of the revised board policies of 5450 Student Health Services, 5450-R Student Health Services Regulation, 6700E.1 Purchasing Exhibit. Can I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Conley. Can I have a second? Thank you, Matt. Any cares, concerns, questions? Not seeing any. All in favor? Passes. Second reading of new board policy. This is 0101, gender neutral single occupancy bathroom. Can I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Conley. Could I have a second? Thank you, Virginia. Any cares, concerns, questions? Virginia, I have a hard time hearing you.
It wasn't on, so no.
Any questions? Not seeing any. All in favor? Passes. Acceptance of donations. We have from the high school PTSO, they're donating a video camera, a tripod, a microphone, a green screen, clapper, banner, and 1 dozen mugs, with all items having a total value of $559.95 for the use at the high school. Number 2 is New York State Media Technology Association, EMTA, to the Pulaski Street Library in the amount of $1,000. Number 3 is an anonymous donation of 8 banners for Pulaski Street School's Social Justice Library Media Program in the amount of $224.78. And number 4 is the installation of the Veterans Wall of Honor at the Riverhead High School, with costs to be paid by community members and local businesses for the purpose of honoring Riverhead Central School District students who have served in the United States Armed Forces. First off, I want to say thank you to everybody. This is really nice. I really appreciate it. Could I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Conley. Can I have a second? Thank you, Matt. Any questions, cares, or concerns?
No, but thank you, everybody, for those
Thank you.
donations.
All in favor? Thank you, everybody, for your generous donations. And now it's opportunity for board members. Do we have any committee reports?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I think we had 3. So the Wellness Committee, made up of myself, Mr. Wallace, and Mrs. Healy, and several of its staff members, met on March 17th. The committee discussed the cafeteria program. The number of meals served since December has doubled, but the program is still at 50% of its service levels pre-pandemic. However, the numbers are quickly trending in the positive direction. Now serving lines at the high school, the middle school, and Pulaski, which were approved by the voters in June 2020, have been ordered and are tentatively scheduled to be installed in July. The USDA waiver, which provides for meals at no cost to all students, has been extended through September 2021. This program has little discernible impact on Riverhead Central School District. However, because the district's 7 schools participate in the community eligible provision, we plan to apply to reauthorize the CEP program again this spring, which would have the effect of increasing the district reimbursement ratio. Changes in the district's demographics have allowed this improvement to occur. Spring athletics for the varsity and junior varsity levels began April 26th. Middle school athletics begins May 10th. There are a number of protocols in place to promote healthy participation, including the rule that all student athletes and coaches must wear a mask at all times as tolerated. Students must social distance at practices and on the sidelines during games. Visiting teams must provide the host team with a document showing that all visiting players have answered the COVID self-assessment survey prior to the game. Students who participate in high-risk sports, which include only boys lacrosse, must submit to weekly COVID-19 testing beginning April 14th. The RCSD plan is for the nursing staff to test student athletes on Wednesdays each week. Most high school students do not attend school in person on Wednesdays. The current rules limit spectators to no more than 2 per student athlete and no more than can safely accommodate at that field. RCSD, like many districts, is not permitting visiting teams to have spectators. All spectators will be admitted by ticket only and must sit in a marked spot in the bleachers or along the fencing. We are working to make it possible to live stream certain games. The Wi-Fi access on the field is currently non-existent. We are attempting to secure wireless connections with sufficient bandwidth to enable streaming. We are also still determining which sports can be live streamed given the difficulty in providing useful camera angles for certain sports such as track and field.
Virginia, do you have a report?
I think
Sue?
Dr. Kokonis wants to.
Go ahead, Sue.
Okay. The Intergovernmental Committee met last week on March 16th, and Chris Dorr and myself were in attendance. We discussed policy 5420 and regulation student health services, minor edits in language, as well as edits regarding homeless students and COVID-related items were made as per suggestions from the New York State School Board Association. We also reviewed Exhibit $6,700 related to the purgency policy, and we edited the table in this exhibit to make it align to the language in the policy of 6,700 R1. And that was it.
The Health and Safety Committee, made up of Lori Downs, Virginia Healy, and Matt Wallace, along with several dozen district employees and local first responders, met by Zoom on March 15th. We discussed several items, including the forthcoming Safe Routes to Schools initiative of the town of Riverhead, which intends to install sidewalks on North Griffin Avenue and School Street this summer. We also discussed reaching out to the town of Southampton to determine if there is a plan to install or improve sidewalks near Phillips Avenue Elementary School. J.C. Broderick, the district's environmental engineers, have completed their sampling of every tap in the district as a part of the state-mandated lead in water testing program. The results are due back from the laboratory at the end of April. The annual fire inspection will be held on March 26th. The inspection is done by KLH Fire, a state-licensed fire marshal. The district is not subject to town fire inspections. Several important things all employees can do to promote fire safety are: 1, make sure all emergency windows are clear at all times; 2, no door chocks; 3, no plug-in items; and 4, no storage within 2 feet of ceiling. We discussed the Calverton Hills fire and the extraordinary response by our transportation department. Department employees, including a driver, a monitor, and our co-directors, Leslie Moore Sr. and Colette Firkt, used the department's SUV and other means to evacuate students away from the smoke and down the hill to safety. One of our buses was stuck at the top of the hill during the fire, and it was served as a temporary shelter for displaced residents until the Red Cross arrived on the scene. The Stop Arm Camera program is set to begin on May 1st. Suffolk County, which administers the program and receives the benefit of the fines imposed on the violators, has begun a public awareness campaign. There was discussion about parking on Edgar Avenue in Aquabog. With the change in entrance ways at Aquabog Elementary School complete, the administration at that elementary school would like to see the town remove the no parking signs on Edgar Avenue in front of the school. We can free up parking spaces in the back lot for parent pickup and allow staff to park on Edgar Avenue, which is currently impossible because of the restrictions. Christine Tona informed the committee that quarantine rules have changed in the past few days and now permit those who are fully vaccinated and those who have been previously infected with COVID-19 within the last 3 months to avoid quarantine should they be exposed to a positive case. We can continue to make adjustments, Ms. Tona said, referring to the district's practices as advice from the Department of Health changes. Spring sports are set to begin on April 26th, and the current guidelines will permit up to 2 spectators per athlete up to the capacity of the playing field. The junior prom is scheduled for May 21st, and the senior prom is scheduled for June 24th, and class advisors are working with students and catering facilities to create proms that are enjoyable but also safe for all participants. For example, dancing will be permitted, but masks must be worn. And then finally, the committee paid tribute to longtime member Ann Priapi, who has announced her retirement at the end of 2020-2021 school year.
Thank you. Any board member remarks? Anybody have anything to say? Go ahead, Sue.
I have a question, only I don't want to close out the meeting without asking. Is the general fund can pay off things if we're in the red for the cafeteria fund, but it can't be the other way around. So I'm just asking, if we do have a balance there and we don't use it, are we in jeopardy of losing those monies?
When you say losing those monies, which monies are you referring to? I want to make sure I follow your question right.
The monies in the cafeteria fund that we usually put into the cafeteria capital reserve for the voters to vote on.
Okay.
I know that in certain situations, if you let money sit unused, you may be in jeopardy of it being taken away. If I don't think I'm phrasing it right, but
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
If we don't use it, if you don't use it, do we lose it?
Right, if you don't.
Right.
After a certain amount of
You
time.
won't
Is
lose
there
it.
like a time frame on that at
You
all?
won't lose it from the cafeteria capital reserve, but in terms of the cafeteria fund, which is a separate account, it has to be used to, the state will cite you if you have too much money in it, and then you have to do something with it. So what the board has done, and the voters have given permission for, is to set up this cafeteria capital
Right.
reserve. So we have, with the board's permission, moved money into that reserve every year based on what's excess from the fund itself and the operation of the cafeteria.
right, okay. So even though there's no movement, okay, right. So even though if there's no movement in the reserve this year, it's not going to be frowned upon.
In the reserve, no. The
Okay.
reserve is set up for that purpose, to allow us to, prior to the pandemic, the cafeteria was doing quite well. And we made so much money, the state said, you need to do something with this. So the voters, with the board's permission, the voters allowed us to create this reserve, and that's where we've been moving that money. So
Right, okay, thanks.
So there's opportunity to address this again next year, or within the next year?
Well, you have to get voter permission to take anything
Right.
out of the cafeteria capital
But for
reserve.
next year.
So realistically, I mean, I don't think you're going to have a special, district vote for this. So yeah, it would be next
I'm
year.
saying for next year.
Yeah, it would, the earliest you could do it then,
Right.
it would be May of '22.
And I, who else was with me? Therese, we toured at Phillips, and we know it was a need, but it wasn't a priority, and, we got that great sense. And at that time, it was a higher cost, too, what they were trying to do, and it just seemed so complicated, and we really felt kind of sad that it was just, and then to come up with this other alternative was, simpler to come up with the ovens. But again, they didn't think it was, it wasn't something like, it couldn't wait till next year.
Well, again, this is monies that are there that is not coming out of the general fund. And I know we voted on it, but this is smart in the sense that this is any repairs in the kitchens which are needed, because as you can see.
It wasn't so much
not
repairs, right, Sam? It was just to make things easier with the line,
Right.
to just to have, to use
Well, yes.
the ovens. That was all. It wasn't a sense of like something was broken.
Right. Well, no, I know I misspoke, but
That's what I'm just saying.
Yes.
It was, just so you know, it wasn't something that was broken or
I
that we
know.
were
I
taking
understand.
away. It was just to make something easier with the line and
I
and
know.
with the service at the
Because
time.
I mean, the demand and with this year
Right.
with the food services. But, just so everybody knows, I mean, this is monies that it's there for a reason, and it's done in a smart manner so that anything that is needed in the kitchens, we're not going out to bond for it. We're not borrowing money for it. It's not coming out of our general fund. And it's not, it's a separate entity, that's all.
Right, which is
Well, I think
important to know.
I know I personally understand it, but my thing is, I don't want anything attached to this budget that's going to upset this budget. I want a bare bones budget. I don't want any little doodads hanging off of it. I just want a budget, educate our kids, get them their sports, everything that they need, and that's it. That's me personally.
No,
And that's what I'm looking at.
I understand. I understand that. But even last year, with everything going on, our community understands the cafeteria reserve, capital reserve fund, and they did approve it. So that's and last year was, a doozy. But I do believe that I'm just surprised.
I'm fine. I appreciate your comment. However, it's my vision is, again, I'm going to repeat it. Me personally, I'm not speaking for anyone else on this board but myself. So everyone else could hold up their own end. And my end is I don't want nothing. Even that, I don't want anything to make anybody think that anybody's looking for more than what we need. And what we need is a bare bones budget, get these kids educated, get them in school full-time, and get things moving. We got a lot to do, and these kids have a lot of catching up to do. And that's my only thought, is get this budget passed, get the kids in, and do what we have to do. All the little bells and whistles can be taken care of as we go along the way, once we move along. But right now, that's all I'm thinking about.
I agree.
Anybody else?
No, thank you, Lori.
I have a
Opportunity for
question.
RCFA. What?
Virginia.
Go ahead, Virginia. I can't hear you.
Yeah, somebody wasn't able to get in a question about the Regents exams. If they go in their transcripts, even though they don't count, will they still go in their transcripts, the Regents, if they take a Regents? You can't hear me, Lori? Oh, can Kristen hear me?
If the students sit for the Regents exam, one of the 4 Regents exams that are being offered this year, it will not, based on the resolution, be part of the final course grade. It's a do no harm policy this year. And if it doesn't help them, it'll go on as an exemption. As long as they pass the coursework for the year and the 4 quarters combined overall is a passing grade for the student, the Regents exam can be an exemption, and it will count towards graduation requirements. It will count towards mastery honors endorsements on diplomas, as long as we'll be looking at the final course grade in those cases, as we did last year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anybody else? RCFA?
Good evening, Gregory Wallace, RCFA. We'd like to start by offering our deepest condolences to Mr. Dorr on the passing of his mother. The association was pleased to hear board members advocating for increasing the number of psychologists currently employed by the Riverhead Central School District at the last meeting. Currently, the Riverhead Central School District employs 7 full-time psychologists who serve not only the 7 buildings in our district, but also service the 3 private, parochial, and charter schools housed within our district boundaries. Long Island schools average 1 psychologist for approximately every 500 students. Riverhead has 1 psychologist for every 882 students, which I firmly believe is amongst the highest on Long Island. This year, our psychologists were given the additional responsibility of chairing CSE meetings, which until recently has been exclusively an administrative responsibility, thus making the job of our psychologist exponentially more difficult to manage. Upon directing Riverhead Central School District psychologists to serve in the capacity of a CSE chairperson, no additional psychologists were added at that time. In fact, 2 psychologist positions were eliminated from the PPS office prior to the implementation of the new CSE chairing structure. The added responsibilities of our psychologists has significantly reduced their availability to staff, students, and families within our community at a time when their expertise in social and emotional health is in the highest demand. Furthermore, we're beginning to see psychoeducational testing, which has always been the responsibility of Riverhead Central School District psychologists, being outsourced to private agencies, which has the potential to have a considerable budgetary impact should the current system in place remain. The Riverhead psychologist to student ratio was already the highest in the county. With the addition of the CSE chairing responsibilities, it's our position that our psychologist jobs went from challenging to unsustainable. On a quick personal note, I'd like to parlay on the middle school presentation. This year has been a challenge for all parents of school-aged children. My wife and I cannot thank Dr. Hudson and his staff enough for the support that both he and his faculty have provided to our 8th grader. Dr. Hudson and his staff at the middle school have gone out of their way to provide academic support while still maintaining a strong sense of community at the middle school, and for that, we personally thank them.
Thank you. Opportunity for the public. First, do we have any questions that are online? Yes?
One.
Kathy, we're going to do somebody online first, and then we'll go to you, and then we'll go back to online, okay? Thank you.
Okay, there's one question tonight from Allison Matway from Wading River. Did the district adopt a do no harm policy for the 4 Regents exams this year?
You want to ask the whole thing?
Can remote students be forced to come to school to take them? If not, will they still be able to graduate and qualify for Regents and Advanced Regents diplomas with honors? For non-remote students who opt not to take the Regents, will there be any penalty from the district or state education department in terms of graduation or diploma type they are eligible to receive?
Thank you, Mrs. Matway. As I mentioned a few moments ago, there's no penalty for students this year. The exemption option is available on the Regents exam, as well as for the honors and mastery endorsements. I am in the middle of putting together a community letter that'll go out later this week that'll outline the changes to the assessments, the Regents exams, the CDC guidelines, and quarantine guidelines, so that everyone's on the same page. And parents are encouraged to reach out to building principals as well for additional questions that they may have.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to Mrs. Beresny. You have 3 minutes.
Kathleen Beresny, Riverhead, New York. Good evening, Madam President and the Board of Education. I'd like to go down on a trip to California, as stated a few weeks ago on a Zoom meeting when Mr. Sam Schneider explained to the Board of Education about how, you know, you go to California, it's supposed to take 5 days, but then it might take 7. So I like to speak about my trip. That might take 9 days. I approach you because you are ultimately responsible, the Board of Education, for the budget. You give direction to the superintendent, and she directs your wishes to the business superintendent. He talked about reserves and savings accounts for rainy days. Well, taxpayers and residents also have to save for rainy days in their savings, and some of them were depleted because many of you know that the pandemic crisis made families give up their jobs to stay home, made families to educate the children, leaving no second income. So bear that in mind. Any savings or extras built into the budget codes should be given back to the taxpayers to reduce the budget for 21-22 or set aside for the extracurricular activities in case you have another rainy day. Not reserving your savings, but helping taxpayers reserve their savings. I know you're between a rock and a hard place. And I want to bring up, Mrs. Downs, Madam President, that I don't like the chitter-chatter out in the community stating that anyone that votes the budget down is an enemy. They're not enemies. Or that we don't care about children and extra sports and music. That's not true. You have to take in consideration their finances just as much as you, as a district, have to take care of your finances. So please be cognizant of the taxpayers. This May 2021, you need to be creative and come up with viable solutions. It's still critical times. And also, I just want to bring up that the cafeteria is self-sustaining. And I think a lot of people understand that saying that they're self-sustaining. They make their own money. And years ago, the district used to take some of their money. So now they don't. It's all been set aside. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you, Mrs. Downs, and thank you for your statement that you want to make sure that this is a good budget, and no one is against children, but I don't want to hear enemies out there. People are sending me the stuff. That's inappropriate. And these are people in the district. Because we don't vote yes, or you don't vote yes, you are an enemy. And that's not
Are you saying
correct.
that I said that?
No, I didn't say you.
Oh,
Out in
okay.
the community. I'm saying if you say it, People that don't vote yes are not enemies. Maybe they don't have money in their savings account. Maybe it was depleted. Their husbands had to take a second job. Don't forget, the district got paid fully. A lot of people didn't. And you have to take that into mind. Be cognizant of the taxpayers and the Riverhead residents. And I thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Perezny. Ms. Lisa, anybody else? There's no more? Anyone from the audience?
Good evening, Deb Rogers, Aquabog resident. I also happen to be the Phillips Avenue Elementary School principal. I've been asked to get up this evening to speak on behalf of the PTO president, who has been texting me since you voted down the resolution to spend only $16,000 that is not in the budget, that will not be voted on by the voters for the upcoming needs at Phillips Avenue. Do we need this? Right now, it's an inefficient system. Right now, Phillips Avenue services and is the busiest kitchen in the district. The impact to our general schedule means that we need more wait time between periods so that the food can be heated properly for students. This isn't something that we've asked for this year. This is something that we have been asking for, an improvement in our kitchen and ability to service our students. We talk about doing what's best for kids and educating students. Food insecurity has a huge impact on that. Phillips Avenue, for several years, has been truly committed to making sure no family has to deal with food insecurity. We have been honored and pleased to work with the RCFA as they yearly do a food drive to support the Phillips Avenue Pantry. Tomorrow, the High School Key Club is dropping off a donation of food as well to help support our students and their families. In addition to that, when we were looking at our presentation for an upcoming board meeting, I calculated the total number of pounds of food that we have been able to provide for the Riverhead, Flanders, Phillips Avenue community. Over 55,000 pounds of food since this time last year has gone out to the community. I ask again that you reconsider this proposition. It is at no impact to the general budget or what we vote on and I vote on as a taxpayer. The whole purpose of setting up the separate fund was for things like this. Is it broken? No. Is it efficient? No. We're talking about two completely different things. We're talking about a stove that we're not using, as opposed to items that can heat food for kids so that they can eat hot food. Again, on behalf of my PTO president, we ask that you reconsider this resolution and approve it this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Board, do you want to take a revote?
I motion for revote.
Take a revote. Do I have a second? Matt, is a second? Cares, concerns?
I do believe that the community is well educated in the cafeteria capital reserve fund. Last year was our second year. The first year, we went out and educated people about the fund and how it is a separate entity and that it does not dig into our general fund. And I must add that, you know, back when I started in 10 years ago, let's say, the cafeteria fund was in the red. And we looked at it, we worked hard on our policies, and now it's paying for itself. We used to have to, and many districts do, where their cafeteria fund is in the red and the general fund pays into it. And we do not do that. We have very good policies in place, and between my participation and my other board members on the policy and audit committees, this is smart. And the first year we did it, we educated our community about this fund and how it is smart in that we are upgrading, improving our cafeterias without using general fund money, without having to put it out to bond, and we're using it wisely. Now with that, last year, we also put up the proposal as well, and with everything going on last year, I understand I understand everything that went on last year. Again, the voters approved it because they know and understand how this fund works. It's smart. So I just,
Okay, we got the second motion. We got cares and concerns.
Downs?
I just want to
Ms. Downs?
state, yes.
I didn't catch who made the second motion, but if you're making a motion to reconsider, it needs to come from somebody who voted no on the initial motion.
Well,
Okay.
okay, so Therese and Mr. Conley are motioning first and second.
And I need to remind you, too, that there was a related motion to the cafeteria proposition for the SECRA that went with that.
There were two.
So there were two
We'll do the
motions.
secret- All right, let's do the secret first.
Well, hold on one second. We'll just hold on one second.
I just want to state that this is my 5th year on the board, and this is the first time we have heard anything about a stove or an oven being insufficient. We haven't heard it over the years. This is the first year we've heard about it. I do
But-
want to state that.
but you have to understand that our breakfast and lunch program has grown drastically over the years, ever since that I've been on the board.
I didn't
And-
comment to have an argument or a debate.
No, I'm
I
just
just stated
saying-
I heard what you had to say.
Right.
I understand that. I was actually going back to redo. The principal had said that we have been educated on all the stuff that is needed over there. This is the first year, all I'm saying is, this is the first year I heard anything. Heard about a lot of different things over in that building, and we've taken care of them.
And
All we asked for is to wait one more year. That was it.
also, I know when Therese and I were there, I mean, we spoke to the principal and the assistant principal. I mean, they didn't make it, like now I'm hearing all of a sudden it's a sense of urgency. And, and I know I specifically, I look and I ask. I mean, and so now this is what I'm, hearing. And I know at that time, the price, what they wanted to do was was much more expensive. It was like up in the 127,000, was going to turn into moving refrigerators out into the eating area and so forth. I do know this is definitely a more inexpensive option to put the ovens there. And, I had strongly gotten the feeling from them is that they really wanted that budget passed. So I didn't get that. I mean, Therese, you were there too.
Yeah, it just appeared to be an extremely elaborate change in the kitchen altogether. So I agree that it is imperative to pass this budget, and I believe that anything added on, I understand, Sue, what you're saying, but I'm also going to use the word smart. It is smart for this board to focus on passing the budget, and although $16,000 does not appear to be a lot of money from a reserve, that doesn't affect the passing of the budget. The community needs to know that we care about our education, our students, and getting our kids back in school, and that's what I choose to focus on. We can put this off for another time.
Sam, how much is in the capital cafeteria reserve fund?
Give me just a minute. I'll give you the exact number. Just hang on
Well,
if you
it
can.
doesn't be exact, can you, off the top of your head, average?
I don't want to give you a wrong number.
Okay.
So just give me 2 minutes.
Because that's also used for things for repairs, meaning like if something was to break down over the next year or two, that's, with the cafeteria, any equipment, we would go to that, we could go to that reserve also?
Not necessarily, no.
No?
If something breaks and we need it right away, you can't go to this fund because you have to go to the voters for this fund. So this is not the fund to use when item breaks. Those things are fixed through the cafeteria fund itself, which operates much like the general fund. It has various expenditure lines, so there's appropriations in there for repairs or replacement of equipment that can't be fixed. This is for larger scale projects that require voter permission to do. But I'll give you the exact number if you just hang on one sec. You feel free to continue your conversation while I'm looking at it.
This is the end of the conversation.
Okay, sorry, I'll just be 1 second.
Anybody want to sing? While we're waiting?
All right, I can't find exactly what I'm looking for, but in interest of moving on, I think the number is about somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000 to $300,000. But again, please don't hold me to that. I don't want to hold you up while I find the exact number, but that seems to be from memory what it is. But again, that's going to change at the end of the year because anything that's left over is going to, with the board's permission, be transferred into that reserve and that will grow.
Okay. So now, we got to do the secret first, right?
You'd have a motion to reconsider the secret first, yes?
Right. Okay, so we got the motion. So, got the motion, we got the second. We heard cares and concerns. Those in favor? Matt and Sue. Those nay? Do I continue with, there's no sense in continuing with the second, correct? Because you need the secret to do the other one.
You need the secret to do it, and I'd presume you're not going to get a motion to do the other at this point anyway.
Okay. Nope. We tried. That it? Any more, there's no more comments on the online, right, Lisa? No more questions? Okay. So, adjourn. Could I have a motion? Thank you. Can I have a second? Thank you, Therese. All in favor? Good night, everybody. Have a good night.